On today's show, Christian Wood is eligible for a contract extension. Should the Mavs sign him to it? Should they offer him to it? Should Christian Wood accept it? What's going to happen with him? Talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen and then comment anything below. Let me know. Should Christian Wood accept the contract offer? Should the Mavericks offer it to him? Let us know in the comment section below what you think about the Christian Wood contract situation. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, contributor at Mavs.com, the sixth son, the one more thing king. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
I'm getting closer. I'm getting back.
Hold on, I gotta turn the music down so we can hear you.
I'm getting there. I'm feeling a lot better, but my voice is still not fully back yet, but it's good. Mavs beat the Lakers. That was the best Christmas gift for my whole day. But you know what is frustrating? Let me do a Christmas rant real quick.
Oh
presents.
boy. Oh geez.
You know, I just want to know if anybody else is out there, they get their kids some, gifts for Christmas. And then they get obsessed with over the dumbest little thing, like the next day.
Like they play with the box instead of playing with the...
Yeah, and it's like, what? Where's all these toys? Why are you obsessed with this like little helmet on this like little dude? And it's like, you have all these things. So like, why? Anyway, that's just the spot I was at today.
You know, Isaac, I think sometimes God looks at us like that, where he's given us so many good gifts. And then he's like, I've given you my love. Why is that totally a sermon metaphor? You'll go down some week.
How good was Jason Gallagher's tweet with Windhorse dressed up as the shepherd? Unbelievable. I love Jason Gallagher.
What was the caption on it?
I can't even remember now. I think it was "What Child Is This?" Like,
oh yeah, with the Windhorse. What's going on? What child?
What's going on?
So funny. On today's show, we're getting into Christian Wood's contract extension. He's eligible for it right now. We will talk about the dilemma that is his contract extension, where the Mavs feel with it, what we think the Mavericks should do, and all that. Some comparable contracts that have been signed recently that I think would match that. So you can talk about the different kinds of players that are around that number. And then we'll get into quickly about Tyler Dorsey was released. AJ Lawson was signed. We'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about Betonline. They got a couple of odds for trades. Next team if the Dallas Mavericks are number one for Trae Young. That is blowing my mind. We will talk about that, what those odds mean, and if that would happen. DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and then James Harden. Talk about all those guys later in the show. But let's get into this. We are 141 subscribers away from 20,000 on YouTube. I need 141 of you to stop what you're doing or continue and listen in the background. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get us to 20,000 by 2023 because that would be incredible. This channel has grown so much because of you guys. This show has grown incredibly well. The playoff run definitely helped. I'm meeting more people in person. It's been awesome. A lot of it thanks to YouTube. So go subscribe. Just need 141 of you Raccoon Squad members.
Let's do it.
Christian Wood. On Christmas Eve, he's eligible for a 4-year, $77 million contract extension. The Mavericks are limited to that much. Like, that's the most they can give him. They're limited to that offer starting at 120% of his salary from this year. So 120% of $14 million that he's making this year is $17.2 million. Then he gets 8% raises. That takes him all the way to 2026. He'll be making $21.3 million if that's the offer the Mavericks actually make. It's a dilemma, though, right? It's not this automatic. It's not even an automatic Jalen Brunson situation like it was last year. Give him the contract extension. He's been good. Just do it. Just get it over with and sign him to the deal. It's different than that.
Yeah, it's definitely different than that. Smiling. I thought you were going to keep on going, setting the stage. You look at Christian Wood's path up to right now. He's bounced around a bunch of teams at the beginning of his career, all these different training camps, getting cut, all of that. And, he finds himself in Detroit, and he has that one good year in Detroit. Then they have to like kind of figure out, all right, do we want to invest into Christian Wood stock? And they choose not to, right? Like they choose to go Jeremy Grant route. And even before that, he had to beat out a big three, Joe Johnson, for the final roster spot on that Detroit Pistons team. Beats him out, then has a good season. And they end up doing a signing trade. They send him to Houston. We know what happens to Houston. Gets a little rocky there that second year. And they're looking around saying, everybody, like, you start looking around when Houston was trying to trade him, it was hey, can we find a taker for him, before the draft last year? And they were having a hard time trying to find somebody to take his contract.
For a year. All last year, they tried to trade him.
Yeah. And, here comes, Dallas swooping in and saying, hey, we'll just give you some spare parts or not playing, including Boban.
Why you got to do that? Why you got to do that?
We both got
Why you got to bring up Boban?
And the 26th overall pick.
Yeah, a late pick, and they gave him, all the expiring contracts they had.
Yeah. So, and said, hey, on that night, we're going to try to prove it to him. He's got to prove it to us. And it was a swing. And that's why I was saying from day one, hey, there's not a lot attached to this. It's just a swing. They're just going to see how it works out. We know how it's all played out this season of starting, not starting. How's Jason Kidd coaching him? They want more defensively and all this stuff, all leading up to this moment. He's 27 years old. He's playing really good basketball, the best basketball he's played in Dallas over the past few weeks.
For sure.
Starting alongside Luka because of injuries, but he's making the most of the opportunity. And I still don't think that nothing's changed, really. You look at Mark Stein's report out of his Substack, which go subscribe to if you haven't already.
Worth it.
I'm saying that, Dallas, before the recent surge, like all indications that they're not going to extend him. And I still believe the same thing as Mark Stein. I don't think they're going to extend him before the trade deadline. I think it's more likely that he's traded than it is extending.
And so if you look at it, so that's the Mavericks side of it, right? You look at the Mavericks side of it, you see this player and, the history and then the way he's been playing now, which he has been playing well, like you said. And then you look at his side of it. Okay, I'm about to be 28 the start of next season. I've made $31 million in my career so far. I've bounced around teams, and I'm like, okay, this is my shot. This is probably my one shot if it's going to be a 4 or 5 year deal to get a really big payday in the NBA. And so if you look at it from Christian Wood's perspective, 4 years, $77 million, it might be low. Like might be low for him with what he expects, what he thinks he is in the NBA. And so you're like, okay, well, you have two sides of this now. Jason Kidd has been hesitant to trust him. He only really puts him into the starting unit because of all these injuries that have happened. They're curious about how he would fit. We're not going to be able to see how he looks in a playoff setting. The Mavericks haven't played that many games that you feel, oh, this is like a playoff game, and we'll see what Christian Wood looks like. And if they have played in those games, Christian Wood has not closed those games until very recently, like the last week and a half, basically, or so. He has not closed those games. Jason Kidd has still been hesitant to trust him in that. And now the trade deadline is February 9th. It's not All-Star weekend anymore. You got 6 weeks starting like right now. 6 weeks to try and decide, all right, should we offer him this contract extension for 4 more years? Or should we just let him go to the offseason, be unrestricted, see if we can offer him a smaller deal than this, and then see what happens there, and you could just lose him, right? That's the dilemma that the Mavericks are in right now. That's the dilemma of signing Christian Wood. Coming up, let's talk about some other contracts that have been signed in the NBA recently that are kind of comparable to Christian Wood and what we think the Mavericks should do. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place where you can go play some daily fantasy sports. You can play it, and it doesn't have to be against all these guys that have been, working their whole day on trying to figure out what they were going to do. It's just you against the projected numbers. You can go pick 3 to 5 players, 3 to 6 players, I think now, and the projected numbers. Washington versus Philly tomorrow in the NBA. Embiid against the Wizards, 31.5 points over under. That is super high. I'm going to go over on that one. Porzingis, 20.5. Give me the under on Porzingis. Sorry, boy. And then I'm going to put in $20. You can win $60. Put in $100. You win $300. If you want to add another player, let's say I want to add James Harden, 20.5. Just give me less. He'll have like 15 assists, but give me less. If I put down $100 on that, I can win $225 just like that on Prize Picks if they get more or less than their point totals that they have there. Go check it out. It's Prize Picks. And right now, you can get a $100 instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. Use the promo code LOCKEDON at prizepicks.com. All right, Isaac Harris, thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Go make your second listen. Locked On NBA, Locked On Sports today. Great national shows across the Locked On Podcast Network on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, the Christian Wood contract extension dilemma. The Mavericks can't offer him a 4-year, $77 million deal. Does not seem like they are going to do that from what we've been told and how the Mavericks have kind of handled this whole situation. The other contracts I think that are comparable. There's a bunch of them signed in 2021. If you start looking around the league, one of them I think is really comparable. Aaron Gordon signed a 4-year, $86 million extension September of 2021. He's making $19.71 million this year.
Really good basketball player.
Jarrett Allen got a 5-year, $100 million deal in August 2021, so just last year. He's making just $20 million a year. He made an all-star team last year. So that's like probably a little level up than I don't know if Christian Wood's making an all-star team. John Collins got a 5-year, $125 million extension in August of 2021. He was a restricted free agent, got that extension there. He's making $23 million this season. And then Jeremy Grant, I think, is another comparable one. He's making $20.9 million. He had a 3-year, $60 million extension he signed in November of 2020. If you're the Mavericks, you're like, okay, that's probably around the ballpark, which is about the ballpark of this extension, what it is right now. If you're Christian Wood, you're like, I think I'm better than all those players.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're Christian Wood and his agent, that's what you want, right? But is there another team that believes that? I mean, I think that's the question. And, I think when you go back and say, all right, he had a really good year in Detroit and they let him go. He has a good year in Houston and then they want to trade him. And you hope that this is this is the best situation he's been in, most winning, he's been a part of in his career. So for Dallas and for him, yeah, he thinks he's better than all those guys. And rightfully so. Like, you want to have that confidence, right? Like, you want to have an agent that believes in that too. Like, that's what you're going for. He tweeted before the season about being an all-star.
Yep.
And although he's not going to be an all-star, he's still like playing good basketball as of late. But do you believe it long term? That's the question you got to ask. Do you believe it long term as saying, all right, these other teams didn't believe it. Do we believe in it enough to commit $77 million to it to make it, giving $19 million a year? Or like, do you feel the same as, the past teams that he's been on? That's what we don't know about what Dallas is feeling right now.
If I'm the Dallas Mavericks right now, I'm looking at this whole thing and going, okay, well,
do you think he's on the same level as those other guys? Because I'm sorry, I just don't. I think Aaron Gordon is like a better basketball player than Christian Wood.
I think the John Collins, Jeremy Grant is probably like around the same level.
Okay, John Collins it's crazy because John Collins makes more than all the other guys. And I'm like, I think he's clearly fourth on that list.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Jarrett Allen, Aaron Gordon, Jeremy Grant. I think all three of those guys are better than John.
But you would
Collins.
agree he's in that ballpark, right? Because here's the next tier of players. The next tier of players, the bigs that have like the max-ish contracts. Jaren Jackson Jr. got a 4-year, $105 million deal. He's making like $29 million this year. He signed that October 2021. Michael Porter Jr. got a 5-year max. He's making $30 million a year, 170. I'm just saying these are the next like four,
those
five,
are like,
the next four and fives. This is the next tier.
But those are the rookie extensions though. Like those are a little bit different.
They're different, but it's the player that
I think you got to look at like the Capellas. Sabonis is making 18.5.
Capella signed a 2-year extension, 2-year $46 million extension September of 2021. So that's very similar to the deal that Christian Wood could get with this extension.
Yeah, and so you just got to find, like, if Dallas isn't willing to do it, or do they believe that another team on the market this summer is going to give him a Clint Capella contract? If so, then that's going to be the first team that's going to do it, right? Like, no team has really done that. Houston gave him, what, a 3-year? I don't even remember what Houston gave him. It's the deal he's on now. It's like 336, something like that. 3 for 39. 3 for 41.
3 for 41.
So, yeah. So is he gonna, like? I think personally, his next contract will be around that, like 3 for 45. I think it'll be around the same range, a little bit more. Whether that's from Dallas, I think it'll be a little shorter term deal again of 2 to 3 years. Around $15-16 million a year. I think it'll be something like that, whether it's with Dallas or with another team.
One of the other dilemmas about Christian Wood is that you see the potential. You see what he can be as this guy can score 20. He's a good shooter. Like he can handle the ball a little bit. Like he can do all these things. It's been the potential of his career that has kind of like tantalizes you. And you're like, okay, well, I can see it. I can see how it would work. And then you look at the deficiencies, that the issues, and you're like, all right, well, we've never, ever seen it in a playoff like series, let alone playoff atmosphere, right? So you're like, okay, if you're the Mavericks, we have to commit to this guy if we're going to do this extension to make sure that he doesn't leave. We have to commit to this guy, and we got 6 weeks between now and the trade deadline to figure that out. That's a tough dilemma to try and figure out. All right, we've seen this player grow. We've seen him become a better defender in the Mavs system, right? Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen him play well. But we don't know how it will translate. Will we go to the playoffs and all of a sudden, like, everybody's just attacking Christian Wood one-on-one, and we see, okay, well, we can't play him. Like, it's the Cantor situation where you're like, all right, we're going to pay this guy Cantor got paid $19 million, and then all of a sudden they're like, we can't play this guy because who was it? Billy Donovan's like mouthing the words, can't play Cantor in the playoffs. That happens to guys in the playoffs.
You think there's a scenario that, Wood and his agency accept something for less than the 4 for 77? Like, what if Dallas came to him and said, hey, we want more time. We'll extend you 1 year for $20 million. Or, what if it's 2 years?
2 years, 40.
Yeah. It's a little rich. But, it's 2 for 16 a year or something like that. Like, I wonder if they'll accept something 3 for 45. I wonder if they'll accept something like that. That's more of, hey, we can't do the 4 for 77. We just can't commit that right now. But will you take something shorter term? I don't know.
It's an interesting one because it is about, all right, can we commit to this player with the role that, we'd put him in, that we want to be a playoff team. We want to be a championship team. We have to be a championship caliber team with Luka in the next 2 or 3 years, right? Like in the next 2 years, really. We have to be that. Can Christian Wood fit into that? And if the Mavericks do end up making one of these trades where they get one of these guys, we'll talk about in the third segment, can he play a role next to those guys? Can he be the third guy? He's the second guy right now for the Mavericks. He's happy with that. The vibes are good. He's wearing his sunglasses inside after the press conference on Christmas Day. He's excited about that. He loves starting. He loves the vibes. He loves being in this situation. Like, he's getting the ball because, frankly, like, there are times when nobody else besides Luka wants the ball on this team. And Christian Wood's like, Jason Kidd, I will take the shots. I will shoot the thing. I will shoot the rock. And he's getting opportunities. But what happens when, like, a Zach LaVine or a DeRozan or, one of these guys gets traded? The Mavericks finally, hopefully, end up getting somebody like that, and he becomes the third guy. Then what is his use for the Mavericks, right? You're like, all right, now these are the things the Mavericks have to decide over the next 6 weeks to try and figure out, all right, can we give him this extension, and or should we just go ahead and trade him? Because that's what they did with Brunson, right? They were like, okay, we could try to give him this extension, or we can shop him. And they decided to shop him. They couldn't get a deal done for him. And so then by that time, Brunson was playing so well that he's like, I'm not taking this extension. I'm waiting until the end of free agency because I'm going to get more money from my daddy and the Knicks and all that. Yeah.
So let's say Wood in his camp is like firm 4 for 77. And let's say the three options are the 4 for 77 extension, walk for nothing, or traded by the deadline. Which one do you think is more likely?
Go over them again. He walks
the full extension,
4 years, $77 million.
he plays out the rest of the year in Dallas, and then and let's just say he plays out the rest of the year in Dallas.
And you try to extend him then, or try to just re-sign him then.
Yeah, or he's traded by the deadline. Which one do you think is more likely?
Likely, I think they try to trade him.
No, that wasn't an option.
Trade him by the deadline.
He's traded by the deadline, full extension, or he plays out the rest of the year.
God,
expiring.
With this front office, I feel like he'll probably just play out the end of the year. He'll go sign somewhere else, and you'll just be like, just be frustrated by the whole thing. I think they will try to trade him though. They'll try all that. They have to.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's traded by the deadline.
And this is just us reading the tea leaves, right? This is not like, what I think they should do is I think they should sign him to a shorter deal, like you were talking about, and try it a little bit more. We've seen growth from him, and he's been a player in his career that's been like a late bloomer. He's a late bloomer at UNLV, late bloomer in the NBA. There's been different behavioral reasons for that in some instances. And everything's been great in a contract year, but he's been playing better. He's finding his way, and the Mavericks need some of these guys to they can't keep losing some of these guys. And so I think they should extend him, maybe a shorter deal, and keep trying it and see what happens. But then, if they can put him in some kind of deal for a star, heck yeah, do that. Do that deal, right? If that's what it is. Coming up, let's talk about the Mavs roster move they made today, releasing Tyler Dorsey, signing AJ Lawson. And then Betonline came up with a bunch of different odds for players the Mavericks could sign. So we'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about BetOnline. I'll just bring this one up because this one's nuts. James Harden's next team, if not the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden was asked about rumors that he was interested in going back to Houston, and he did not deny those rumors. He's sitting there looking like he had a coat of many Muppets, basically. Have you seen his coat that he was wearing on Christmas Day?
I saw him.
The coat with the hood and all that. You're like, what is this guy doing? And then he's like, I saw the report. I'm happy where I am here. I'm here right now. So BetOnline has these odds. Houston Rockets plus 200, Miami Heat plus 500, Boston Celtics plus 700, Dallas Mavericks plus 700, Knicks plus 800, Lakers plus 800, Bulls plus 900. These are the odds for his next team. So if you're interested in that, you can go check it out on BetOnline. They have all kinds of different odds and lines and stuff. They have college football, NFL, all that kind of stuff. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Isaac Harris. The Dallas Mavericks made a roster move today where they released Tyler Dorsey. They signed AJ Lawson. This is something that they should have done before the season, right? The Tyler Dorsey signing was always kind of strange to me. You have Tyler Dorsey at home. His name is Tim Hardaway Jr., and he's better, and he's had experience in this system and all that. Tyler Dorsey he played only 3 games for the Mavericks. He was on a 2-way deal, so he played a bunch with the Legends. He had a bunch of really good games for the Legends. He was scoring 40, 50 points with 8, 9 threes a game at times. Really good shooter. Didn't bring a whole lot else to the table. He's almost 27 years old. And so the signing to begin with, for all those reasons, was just kind of odd. What would them most optimally? What would happen with this player for the Mavericks? I guess he would play a Tim Hardaway type role. AJ Lawson played for the Dallas Mavericks in the summer league. He's a theoretical 3-and-D type player. His 3-ball hasn't come around, but we've seen it in summer league this past year that it can be a viable shot for him. He's athletic. He can guard. He's pretty good in transition. And I think this is a good move, but they should have done this before the season, because right now they're hemorrhaging wings.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun. So just like you said, they should have done it in the offseason, but Minnesota took him and Dallas passed, went with Dorsey instead. And now they get to kind of reverse, their decision a little bit.
I think with the injuries they've had, Dorian's been out for a little while. Maxi's been out. Frank Ntilikina is in and out, questionable. Josh Green has missed a bunch of games now with the elbow sprain. AJ Lawson might see some time. He might see some minutes because they need these wings. Jason Kidd's been so just fixated on the rotation that he has, and all right, if there's a wing player that's out like Dorian, I'm going to replace him with another wing player. It's just been next man up for this rotation instead of let me move these minutes around here and there. And so I think AJ Lawson may see some time here because he's that theoretical 3-and-D type player. And glad to see he made his way back to the Mavs. Interested to see him play with the Legends, and so we'll see what happens with him. I think it's a good signing. it's a couple months late, but I'm glad the Mavericks ended up getting him back because I think he can end up being a wing player in the NBA.
Yeah, no, sure, make the swing. I mean, he's a two-way guy, so I'm not expecting a ton, but I love to have a guy like AJ Lawson here. I'm happy for it.
All right, Betonline has a bunch of these odds that the players next team, if not with their current player, so if their current team. So a bunch of these players that may be in trade rumors over the next couple of years or this Season. The first one that really caught my eye, Trae Young. So there's been talks that, the Chris Haynes report recently that, the Trae Young and the Hawks are having issues and they can't come to agreement. And we've heard the reports about Trae Young and Nate McMillan not being able to work things out, and Trae Young missed a whole game because he didn't want to play in the game, and then he didn't show up to shoot around, and just like all kinds of weird stuff with the Hawks. But BetOnline put up these odds. Trae Young's next team, if not the Atlanta Hawks, and the Dallas Mavericks are number 1, plus 250. Miami Heat, number 2, plus 350. That one's really interesting. Celtics, number 3, plus 400. Nuggets, plus 700. Lakers, plus 700. Spurs plus 850. I can't imagine him playing for Pop after all this, but I feel like he could get the best out of him. But
where are the Knicks on that list?
Pelicans plus 900, Clippers plus 1,000, Jazz plus 1,200, Blazers plus 1,200. No Knicks on the list.
Wow.
Okay, so what's the thought here with the Dallas Mavericks? Number 1 odds for Trae Young's next team, if not the Atlanta Hawks.
You sent this to me, and I just laughed out loud when I saw it. I just want it to happen for the discourse alone. I want to see Mavs fans rush it to their social media, if not already, searching Trae in their username, trying to delete tweets and all this stuff.
The great Trae Young tweet purge.
My first thought was, we'd get outbid. Even if, let's say, he hit the market tomorrow and said, all right, they're taking bids. Like teams like New York and stuff, they're going to outbid Dallas, right? Having some young players, having all the picks, all of that. That's my first thing. Also, I don't know what's his value.
That's the thing. When you first said outbid, it reminded me of Zach Lowe's recent conversation about Trae Young, where he's like, I don't know what his value is, because can you create a championship level team if Trae Young is a piece there? We're seeing how valuable just not having a single defensive liability on a team is. It's so hard in the NBA right now. If you're a defensive negative, not even just an average player, or even just like Luka's level where he can play good defense at times, but he can also be a liability at times. He's always a liability. He's always just going to be that because of his size and just his overall defensive, awareness or at this point in his career. And so you're who's going to make that kind of a deal? It's probably going to be one of these teams that needs to take the next step up, but it's not from playoff team to championship level team. And so that's where you see the Mavericks, and the Mavericks name is all over these. They're on Trae Young's odds, DeMar DeRozan's odds, Zach LaVine's odds, even James Harden that we mentioned in the break, because they need this next star.
Because they're going to be shopping.
And so everyone's waiting for the Mavericks to make a move like this. And so they're like, all right, we'll just put the Mavericks up top because Luka's the big name. We saw it at Christmas. You're like, national stage, he needs some help. And then you're like, all right, well, the Mavericks are definitely going to make one of these moves to help Luka out.
Trae Young makes $46 million in 4 years. Just want to throw that out there. Yeah, so
that's not even the full max. He didn't even get that full max because he didn't make All NBA.
I'm old enough to remember Luka versus Trae debates. Remember those days?
It's because of Cam Reddish, Isaac. They got Cam Reddish too, and so that makes the Hawks win the trade. Guess what? Didn't win any of it.
That's so funny. Also, another thing of when a team spends a lot of money, it doesn't guarantee you that they're going to be anyway. Because they spent a lot of money on that 2019 offseason.
Okay, so an interesting thing about this Hawks team, I have been thinking about this for a little while. They've done everything that Mavs Twitter, and I know Jason, but
Twitter isn't the coach.
I know they're not the coach or the GM.
Twitter, a small portion of the fan base.
The Hawks have done anything that Mavs fans have been asking the Mavs to do. They've gotten these higher draft picks. They've tried with DeAndre Hunter, and they've tried with some of these other guys. They've nailed the John Collins type pick. That's a late pick. They've signed guys in free agency. They've made, in Bogdanovich, they signed Gallinari to that huge deal. They signed Capella. They went out and they made a big trade for DeJounte Murray. And it's still they did all those things that we wish the Mavs would do. And it hasn't worked, right? And that's the difference between those two stars, right? Is that
both teams have went to conference finals, and now they've came back around to where they're both kind of looking at each other like, Spider-Man meme? Like, what are we? Like, we're looking for the
problem is the Hawks probably have more talent and have tried to add more talent than the Mavericks have recently. It just hasn't worked.
The DeJounte Murray trade, they swung big.
That's what I'm saying. They swung big for that, and they're still kind of in the same spot they've been. And so
it's a testament to even though when you do swing, it doesn't guarantee.
Yeah, it's still
all the stuff you got to find that. But does he get the package like Donovan Mitchell got? That Utah got and all that stuff that Cleveland had to give up. Let's just say real quick though, on paper and if he came out and said I just want Dallas, you would take him, right? You would take him in Dallas playing with Luka.
I mean,
nothing would change roster building wise for Dallas. He would just slide into the whole they'd still want the same from the center spot. They still want the same from the other positions in the starting lineup. But
he just comes into the Brunson role.
Yeah, I mean, I would continue to take my shots at Trae, but if he was willing to come here and play with Luka, then sure, let's do it.
Another one of the weird things is that he has not embraced this off-ball type, Steph Curry off-the-ball type role yet, and that's what he would have to do with the Mavericks, right? He would have to embrace that, and so far with DeJounte, he hasn't embraced it as much. He does, here and there, but that'd be the interesting part. And then that's your swing. I know that the Mavs have to get talent, and you're like, okay, well, they have to go get talent. But if this is your one swing, Luka and Trae trying to create a championship level defense is
trying to create LeBron, Kyrie, Cleveland.
That is a puzzle that I don't know if Sean Sweeney can solve. But you do it, and you're like, all right, we'll probably make the finals, but
Sean's
you don't know if you're winning.
I deserve a raise right now.
Make me executive defensive coordinator of the.
I don't see it happen for Dallas. Shocker.
No. This is all hypothetical, and this is all out there.
But there's other pieces with Atlanta though. If they did have talks with Atlanta, DeAndre Hunter, I think Capella would fit in Dallas. Bogdanovich, we've talked about him.
Be a great fit.
There are other pieces in Dallas I think would fit well around Luka.
Yeah, there's already been rumors of the John Collins type trade for the Mavericks, so we've talked about that in the past. But yeah, it was just interesting. The Mavs are number one on this odds to get Trae Young next if the Hawks don't hang on to him. And I found that really interesting. So let us know what you think about that in the comment section below. Let us know what you think about the Christian Wood contract extension talks below. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.